स्पीकर, जनाब स्पीकर, आज हम तारीख के ऐसे दोराहे पे खड़े हैं जहां हमने ये फैसला करना है कि क्या हम जिस आइन पे हलफ उठा के और यहाँ बैठते हैं, क्या उसके सही स्पिरिट का हम की पासदारी रख रहे हैं या नहीं रख रहे। आज हम what we call, we are at a watershed in history. The Constitution of Pakistan is based on the pillars of trichotomy of power. It is based on the pillars that each of the institutions that the Constitution envisages work within their own silos. Each has its own task, and each should be.
फाजल मेमरान, आपने अपने नशिस्तों पर तशरीफ फरमा हो जाएं। जी जारी रखें नवीद कंवर साहब।
Each should be taking care of protecting this Constitution, not to violate the Constitution in the name of the Constitution, but to carry out the spirit in which the framers in 1973, under the guidance of Shahid Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, had given this Constitution. Unfortunately, we have seen that historically there have been encroachments on the turf of each institution by another for a very, very long time due to multiple martial laws that we have seen in this country. It was the executive that was overpowering, and the other institutions, including the judiciary and parliament, were seen as subservient to the executive authority. And that was something which was not only opposed, but for which a struggle was launched by all the political forces at different points in time. Particularly, to paraphrase Winston Churchill, if the courts in the country are functioning properly, then there is no danger to the country. This he said during the Second World War. And under that spirit, the struggle for giving the powers that were due to it, the judiciary, was launched. Particularly when the dictator, General Pervez Musharraf, tried to gather all the powers under his wing and to decapacitate the members of the bench under the then Chief Justice Iftikhar Chaudhry. The political forces rose up. They rose up in defense of the judiciary. They rose up to restore not only the judges, but even more so, to restore the honor and the power and the independence of judiciary. And once that was successful, once the judiciary had not only regained but gained much more power than they had ever had in Pakistan's history. The pendulum started swinging the other way. The pendulum started swinging to the point where no executive decision was free from judicial overreach. Judges used, till then, hitherto, the power of suo motu, which they invoked to interfere in the day-to-day affairs of government, regardless of which government was in power. They used this to invoke the normal day-to-day business, the transfer and postings, which is entirely the prerogative of the executive, because if they can't even place the officers of their choice in particular places, then what authority or what power do they have?
Order in the House, please. No cross talk. तशरीफ रखें और प्लीज हाउस में एक दूसरे के साथ बात ना करें. अगर बहुत जरूरी है तो आप लॉबीज में जा सकते हैं बात करने के लिए. तशरीफ रखिए. आपकी बातों से स्पीकर जो है वो डिस्टर्ब होता है.
This overreach then took on entirely new concepts. The overreach took another level when, under the suo motu powers, the then government of Yusuf Raza Gilani was dismissed. The fact remains that the Constitution gives only one and only one way of removing a Prime Minister and his cabinet, which is when this House, and this House alone, votes that Prime Minister out. They vote him in and they vote him out. But a backdoor was found. A backdoor was found to dismiss the Prime Ministers through judicial overreach, using some things which were put into this constitution not by the original framers, but by a military dictator. Subsequently, another prime minister was also dismissed by using these powers. If that's not judicial overreach, is that the constitutional concept of voting in prime ministers and voting out? Have you ever heard of a British prime minister being tried by the courts of UK and dismissed so that somebody else can be brought in? But yet these were done. These things were done. At whose behest and to whose benefit? Courts, unfortunately, became politicized. Courts, unfortunately, started taking political sides instead of sticking to the letter and the spirit of the Constitution. They started behaving like politicians. They started playing politics almost on a day-to-day basis. The tool of suo motu powers was abused again and again. And I must say that we take the blame for not having acted in time. Because when the Constitution gives certain rights to the judiciary and the Chief Justice, it does not give other rights. It does not give the right of suo motu decisions without any due process of law taking place. and no right of appeal. Only Allah Ta'ala has the power where there is no appeal and there is no due process. And yet in his own ways, he does have a due process. But this power was usurped in order to take decisions. It's perfectly true that there were times when a larger public good was taken into consideration. But the Constitution itself talks about a due process, that no decision can be taken without due process, and yet suo motu has no due process. One person can decide. A case may be at trial court level, a case may be at high court level, but yet you can scuttle the entire process and just take it directly under the suo motu powers. And once you have decided, there's no right. You cannot appeal to anybody. You cannot talk to anybody else. And that has got a finality. This is not something which either the framers of the Constitution has envisaged, nor should the Parliament tolerate. Mr. Speaker, once again this challenge has been thrown at us. Once again we are standing where we need to make a decision. Are we going to silently allow the spirit of the Constitution to be trampled, or are we going to move forward to ensure natural justice? Because without justice, no society or country can exist. And natural justice only says that when you are questioned on something, you are accused of something, then you should have a full power and the right to present your case. Though I know that I will be transgressing by talking about an ongoing case, yet is it not fair to ask that if my fate is to be decided, if my fate, there's a decision being made about how long the assemblies will last, how long the elections will take place, and under what circumstances, and I'm not even being given a right of representation. I'm being denied. The political parties are not even being allowed to stand up and present their case. Then what should I expect? What kind of a justice should I expect for myself? If the entire length and breadth of the political forces sitting here in this House, they want, because they have a stake, they have an interest, their future is to be decided, and yet we don't want to do it. And we say it's a clear-cut, black and white case. If it was so black and white, Mr. Speaker, then so be it. Let all the judges of the court sit together and take the decision. If it's so one-sided, the Constitution is to be interpreted not through the lens of certain limited people, but through the entire judiciary that sits there in that exalted Supreme Court of ours. Let all the judges give their wisdom in interpreting the Constitution today, because Pakistan will be different once we are done with this decision, be it by this bench or be by the entire court. Pakistan will not remain the same. So let us make a decision which has a permanence, which is accepted by the entire 220 million people of Pakistan as being a fair decision. Our history is full of unfair decisions by the Supreme Court of Pakistan. Let us not repeat it once more. Let us tear away those pages which gave us the concepts of doctrine of necessity and which hanged elected prime ministers and which dismissed one after another prime ministers. Let's have a fair deal here. Let's have a decision which history will write in golden words. This is an opportunity for the Supreme Court of Pakistan today. And this is also an opportunity for Parliament today. Both the institutions have to rise to the occasion and give us decisions that have a longevity and that are acceptable to the entire nation. Thank you very much, sir.